Welcome to Creative Power, a podcast designed to help you claim the full spectrum of your creative potential. I'm Camilla Fellis-Arnold, and I'm passionate about discussing how we change the face of both the creative industries and how we interact with creativity itself, so that it nourishes our soul and helps us express ourselves with alignment, flow, and authenticity. Let's get started. Welcome to Creative Power. In the last few episodes, we've been exploring how to support ourselves and all the emotional blocks that may be coming up at the moment. With spring, there's lots of new ideas peeking their head above the surface, and this can lead to imposter syndrome, as I'm sure you've experienced yourself. I've talked in the last few episodes about how working with your inner child and with playfulness can be really beneficial for helping us move through those spaces. And today, I want to bring some new tools to the table that can really help you open up your mind to creative possibilities. Sometimes, when new ideas surface, not only are there all these fears of who are we to bring them to life, but there's also this question of how can we bring these ideas to life. As creators, we spend a lot of time making connections and juxtapositions to all sorts of things. We find meaning everywhere, and we translate it into something others can understand. But sometimes, you know what? Ideas don't flow so easily. Sometimes we can see the glimmer of something amazing in the corner of our eye, but just don't know how to flesh it out into something more solid. It's a tendency that I've observed in lots of creative people. We are essentially collectors. And some of us know how to assemble these pieces into something we can use better than others. But sometimes our own stuff gets in the way of us seeing things clearly. Enter yoga and meditation to open up and clarify the creative mind. And I'm bringing both of these to the discussion, not just meditation, because at the core of both is mindfulness. And mindfulness is where magic can happen. Now, if you want to delve into mindfulness a bit more, way back in episode 5, we're now on episode 20, wow. But way back in episode 5, I talked about how mindfulness has benefits on creativity. Now, everyone knows mindfulness is great for mental well-being, all things from emotional and behavioural regulation to reductions in anxiety and depression. And in that episode, I talked about how you can combine mindfulness with creative activities. So it's well worth checking out if you'd like to try some really, really simple creative mindful practices. However, today I want to talk about how these practices of yoga, meditation, and even things like Tai Chi can support your creative mind. So let's start with yoga. Yoga is all about bringing balance to the body and mind, expanding your consciousness and awareness of yourself. There are numerous health benefits to it, and I'm not getting into any of that today. But just know this: yoga is an ancient practice. Our ancestors knew what wisdom was to behold from bringing ourselves into alignment across the board in this way. So naturally, it's going to have a positive effect on our creativity too. And as you do yoga, you work with a meditative, mindful state too. But unlike meditation, you're also working with the physical body too. So actually, I think it's a great starting point for anyone who wants to practice being more mindful, but is struggling with meditation, because it's got something more than just sitting there and trying to empty your head. And in fact, it's how my journey started with both practices of yoga and meditation. You see, I did yoga a lot in my late teens, early 20s, and back then the body was much more willing. So I found it easier to spend more time implementing the meditation and mindfulness aspects and focus on my breathing and being really present in the moment, because my body would just do what I wanted it to do, basically. How did that help me with my creativity though? Well, for a start, I was much less stressed when I did yoga regularly. And as I've said it before, but I'll say it again for those at the back, creativity is the first thing that stalls when we are stressed. Why? Because it's not essential to survival mode, which is what we slip into when we get stressed. So in short, less stress equals more room for creativity. But more than that, yoga enhanced my focus and concentration. When you are consistently bringing yourself back to the present moment and focusing on that breathing while you are in a pose, you learn to let go of all the other noise in your mind. And this has a knock-on effect in the rest of your life too. You may not be consciously being mindful, but you have been rewiring neural pathways in your brain during your yoga practice that will activate in other parts of your life too. There's even been studies that indicate that yogic breathing increases alpha brainwaves. These alpha brainwave patterns are associated with not only lower levels of stress, but greater creativity levels. You can see where I'm going with this, right? It is your alpha brainwaves that bring those eureka moments. It's also when you get into your flow state in these alpha brainwaves. And when you flow, so does your creativity. Yoga also encourages us to move our bodies. Now, this won't be the same for every creative practice, but by and large, most of them are fairly sedentary. We sit at a desk designing on the computer, or at the easel to paint, or at the piano to play. So getting out of our heads and into our bodies by moving in ways that we normally wouldn't, and activating muscles that don't get used much in daily life, it can only be beneficial, right? Moving in new ways and encouraging that self-awareness can encourage our minds to think in new ways too. And isn't that what creativity is all about anyway? And over the last few episodes, as we've been talking about dealing with clearing emotional blocks that are stopping us from reaching our creative potential, well, yoga can help do that too. Because it's all about bringing the mind and body into balance. It helps energy flow and move within us. There's a 20-minute chakra clearing meditation that I like to use personally from Yoga Download. Each pose has been chosen specifically to unblock one of the 7 chakras, energy centers within the body. And it's also presented each pose with a sound and an affirmation that you can do while you're in the pose. And it really does, I know it sounds, silly, but it really does open you up mentally and physically. And it's one of my favourite routines to do whenever I start to feel myself blocked or stalling creatively. Because sometimes We don't have to go digging for some emotional memory to clean. Sometimes we can move through and release something in a different way, in a physical way, as long as we are open to it. And that's the whole point that I'm trying to make with this episode, really, isn't it? Try something new. Open your mind up to the possibility that it will have benefits beyond just making you feel good with a rush of endorphins. Set the intention when you go to your yoga mat or you start your Tai Chi opening movements that it will actually help you get out of your head and improve your creativity. Because intention is everything. It really, really does carry you forward with these things. You may not have the perfect form or be able to do every pose with ease. I know I can't anymore. But trying with the intention that it will be beneficial regardless of how well you do it is massive. So often we are afraid of trying in case we're not good at it. But then we lose out on the benefits altogether. And we prevent ourselves from getting any better if we don't start giving ourselves the opportunity to discover anything new about ourselves or the activity in the process. And on that note, let me tell you about my meditation practice. I don't meditate in the traditional sense of the word about 90% of the time, and I think my life and creativity are all the better for it. Now, meditation came to my attention in 2017. By this point, me doing yoga was a distant memory, and evidently I'd become stressed out to the max. So what happened was I was working as a wedding photographer, and long story short, had a panic attack at a wedding that then led to more regular panic attacks. I mean, admittedly, my nan had died earlier that year, really, really unexpectedly, and I'd spent the year being the strong one in the family for everyone else, so I was carrying a lot, and then I cracked. So I dabbled with meditation, and combined with retreating safely back into my comfort zone of graphic design, the panic attacks subsided. Until a couple of years later, when our neighbours decided to embark on a campaign of harassment against us, and it was just awful. A side note, the neighbours have recently moved. Yay, so it's all over, but at the time it was really stressful and downright scary. I mean, I went to the doctor and they said they would rather not medicate me if they could help it. And they said, would I be willing to try meditation instead first? So I went home and I downloaded the Headspace app on their recommendation. And I followed some of the basics in that app for about a year. And to some degree, it really did help. I learned the basic principles of clearing my mind, focusing on my breath, etc. But I don't think I'm cut out for a completely empty head for that long. In fact, I don't think it's an easy space for any creative to get to because we're just so full and busy in our heads imagining stuff and creating things, right? So I decided to start exploring some other meditation apps. I mean, at this point, most people would have just given up, but having had lots of episodes of panic attacks, I didn't want to have that happen again. So time to start exploring other meditation apps and make this work. I found Insight Timer was a great one, and it's free. So go download that one and give it a whirl because it's great. What I loved about it, though, and this is where it really works for us creative people, is it wasn't just meditation in the traditional sense. Yes, there is some of that on there, but there is also guided visualizations and meditations galore on there. You can find something to literally suit everyone's taste. And these guided meditations play right into creators because we're primarily visual people. They transport us to other places. They help us conjure up worlds to explore. And then within these worlds, that's where the mindfulness and the wisdom comes in. You can learn something about yourself in that world. I have a friend who uses a meditation, which is on Insight Timer, I think, that takes her into a crystal cave. And in this crystal cave, a goddess will appear, giving her advice on whatever questions she asks. And I just love that way of using meditation to really go in there and specifically ask for the wisdom that you need, that you just can't access consciously. And I think it's also really important to note, explore what works for you. For some people, the silence and emptiness of their mind is really what they need. That's where they gain the insight, the inner peace, the new ideas. For other people, guided meditations in various otherworldly settings is exactly what they need to help spark off something within them and solve problems. And personally, I eventually settled on an app called Synctuition, and it starts with a few minutes each meditation. It starts with a few minutes setting up the theme of that particular meditation and guides you into a more relaxed state. It talks you down the brainwave patterns to this alpha brainwave state. And then you're left with 3D sounds for the remainder to explore and see what comes up. So you've been given a frame, context for that particular meditation, and then you are free to roam the wilds of your mind. And I love that. It's when I get my best ideas because it allows for any and all possibilities to arise. Sometimes there'll be memories or people from my life to speak to. Sometimes I'll go in with a question that needs answering, and 9 times out of 10, it's usually a character from a TV show or a film that I love that shows up to bring their nugget of wisdom that helped me out. Sometimes I really do go there for peace and quiet. But unlike the empty thoughts approach, I'll do it like a mini holiday. I'll envisage myself and conjure up an image of, say, being on a hammock by the beach and just take a break. Whatever I need, I can create in my meditative state. But in that state, way down those alpha brainwaves, we are less in control. We are more relaxed and in flow. And this allows for completely unexpected things to pop up. Like, honestly, the amount of times I've gone deep into a meditation and been accosted by Yoda wanting to give me some advice or knowledge, well, unreal it is. And I'm not sorry for that joke. Now, of course, it could all be seen as a metaphor and an imagining made up from our own minds. But what if it is? The deepest wisdom is often found within ourselves, and most of us struggle to access it. So if this helps us open up to it, does it matter? I think what I'm really trying to say is meditation isn't all about sitting cross-legged, saying Om a lot, speaking in riddles, and having a mind totally void of thoughts. That's one way to do it, and if it works for you, great, crack on. But if it doesn't, don't dismiss it off the bat. Give yourself a chance to try and find a way to make it work for you. Explore different sounds to meditate to. Try different apps, different visualizations, different voices guiding you through the relaxation to find what you need. Because one thing that I know about meditation is when it works for you, wow, does it open up your mind. It's given me access to so many creative ideas that I don't think I would have come to otherwise. It's helped me solve problems that felt way beyond my conscious reach. It's opened up my playfulness and creativity, because how can you not have a whale of a time running around with characters from your favourite shows for 20 minutes? If nothing else, it's a fun escape from the doldrums of daily life. For me, meditation did much, much more than just help me manage my stress and anxiety. It sounds a little bit cliche, I know, but it really did open my mind up to a whole new world of possibilities. So give it a try. Meditation, yoga, tai chi, see what they spark within you. At the very least, the sense of inner peace that you get from them will allow your conscious creativity to flow more. But allow for the possibility that it also broadens your horizons to so much more as well. Be open to anything and everything. It's all there if you want it. And if you do go on a journey into Wonderland exploring meditation, I'd love to hear about it and hear what it's done for your creativity. Don't forget, you can always leave me a voice message on SpeakPipe to tell me what results you get. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And I will also be sure to leave plenty of links in the show notes to some of the apps and resources that I've mentioned today. But for now, good luck with your meditation journey. I hope you find it as enlightening as I did. Thanks for listening to Creative Power today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and consider leaving a review. To find out more ways you can connect or work with me, please visit www.camillafellisarnold.com/creative power.